Hello, all you wonderful readers. Welcome back to Shelf Check, brought to you by the Carolina Manga Library. Today, we're taking a walk through the shelves to talk about what do I read next? These suggestions will all be examples of series that you can read after finishing your current popular series to get the same vibes and feels. As usual, we're going to recommend several graphic novels and tell you why they are amazing. As a reminder, we are only recommending series that are officially available in the US, either digitally or physically. No scanlations here. Today's episode is brought to you by our wonderful patrons. Special thanks goes out to our honorary librarians, Sean Vahek and Katie Cat, and our library assistants, DB Explorer, Selwyn Hector, and Bagel. Stay until the end of the broadcast to learn more about joining our Patreon. So with all that out of the way, let's get reading. So, you know when you are really obsessed with a manga that is currently being published, and you get to that horrible point in your life where there are no more chapters, and you don't want to resort to scanlations because that's naughty kids, and we'll discuss that later on possibly, but you have to wait for the next book to come out. Well, that's a horrible feeling, and I feel it at least twice a week. It's absolutely horrendous, but that is one of the reasons I'm so glad that I run the manga library and that I'm a manga librarian, because there's always something else out there that will give you similar feels, similar vibes. It will not be the same story by any stretch of the imagination. That's a whole different podcast because there's a whole bunch of knockoffs, which is really fun. But what's important is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I can find you something else to read, I promise. And as unique as every series is, it's not an island. Okay, so there is something else out there for you that you'll be able to read and enjoy while you're waiting for the next book or chapter to come out of the current popular series that you're reading. I promise. The pain that you'll feel when the series is over, that's a whole different ball game that I'm just going to send you flowers and chocolates and just go buy yourself some ice cream. You'll feel better after that. So this month I have 6 different super popular books that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to sum up the super popular series because either you've already read it or you're looking to read it or you've at least absorbed the basic plot from cultural osmosis, because these are like super popular. But what I am going to do is I'm going to recommend another series and tell you about it like I normally do that will give you the same kind of vibes as this current popular series. So the first one we're going to talk about is Jujutsu Kaisen, which of course is incredibly popular. It's one of the most commonly requested things in my manga library. Whenever we do a show or whenever we set up anywhere, easily the first hour, we get several questions of, do you have any Jujutsu Kaisen? So it's up there on the list. So the series that I'm going to recommend to you that you read after Jujutsu Kaisen is called Deadman Wonderland. So Jujutsu Kaisen, it's very shonen. Okay, I've read it, and forgive any cat sounds that you hear. My cat has been very needy the last couple of days. Think of it as a perk. Jujutsu Kaisen is a very fairly typical shonen story. It's got that great fight scene action, the good, well-rounded characters, and it's got the good plot line that keeps you interested. But it's very typically a shonen property. Deadman Wonderland is very similar to that. Deadman Wonderland is a series about basically there's this kid and he's in high school and he gets arrested one day because everyone thinks that he caused this great cataclysm because he has powers that make his blood basically into weapons and he can form blades and stuff out of it. So he gets sent to this prison where it's very oh shoot, what is this stupid series called? It's very, very Katniss Evergreen. Okay. The whole point is if you go to this prison and you have these special powers, you can fight to the death with other people with those powers in order to get pardoned. Okay. And it gets broadcast out to all the rich people in the world and they get to bet on who's going to die that week and all that good stuff. So, it's got a lot of the same interesting character development. It's got a lot of the same twists and a lot of the same gumption-y main character energy. And it's got a lot of really good fight scenes. I'll tell you now, it's definitely more bloody than Jujutsu Kaisen. It's definitely not something I would recommend to anybody under the age of 15, but it is the kind of series that'll give you the same kind of adrenaline pumping vibes as Jujutsu Kaisen. So yeah, Deadman Wonderland. Give it a shot. The anime is actually a pretty good adaptation, but of course the manga is better. Not always, but this time. So the next series I'm going to talk about is going to be comparing it to Dandadan, which of course is the uber popular thing to talk about right now. Dandadan. Oh, Dandadan be trippy. And I agonized for a little while about which one to recommend to you guys after Dandadan, because there's a couple of really good choices. But the one that I picked is Dorohedoro, which sounds a lot like Dandadan. It's fun to say, Dorohedoro. So Dorohedoro is, oh boy, how do I sum this up? Okay, so the story takes place in the post-apocalyptic world, and it's a town where magic can be measured by how many people it destroys. Okay, so the more powerful the magic means how many people it killed or maimed or disfigured or something. So the main character is a regular human, but he's been cursed with the head of a lizard. And he doesn't know who cursed him. So he's determined to break his curse. So he grabs a friend of his, and they go on a never-ending quest to find the one responsible for giving the dude a lizard head. So undoing the curse is a lot harder than you think it is. But with no memories of the person responsible, the main character thinks, okay, I'm just going to start biting off people's heads with my giant alligator head, and then we'll be fine. Because eventually I'm going to bite off the right person's head. So it's a weird series, y'all. It's so weird. And it gave me, honestly, when I watched the first episode of Dandan, and I was like, oh, okay, this is as batshit crazy as Dorohedoro. So if you enjoy the wackiness of Dandadan, or if you enjoy the just off-the-wall humor and / darkness of Dandadan, you're going to love Dorohedoro. It's a great series. It's really easy to get into and just kind of follow along and be just like, I'm just going to be part of this weird world for a couple of hours. I'm just going to sit here with my drink and I'm just going to read this. And I'm just going to lose myself into the stupidity. And that's the kind of vibes that I've always got from Dandadan too, where you have no idea what's going to happen next. And you have no idea where the plot's going. And you have no idea how people can be that stupid. It's a perfect comparison. If you like Dandadan, you can go read Dorohedoro. Trust me, you'll like it. So this next one should come as no surprise, but of course we have to talk about Apothecary Diaries, because Apothecary Diaries just like exploded onto the scene, and it just took over pretty much every female's fantasy ideas, and it's really strange. It's the most fantasy, non-fantasy story I've ever read. It's obviously everyone has at least grasped the idea where it's a young lady who's thrust into a world she's not quite understanding about because she has a special talent for ferreting out poisons, and she's super smart, but she's also super stoic unless she gets excited about like her one thing. So the series that I'm going to recommend you go read while you're waiting for the next episode of Apothecary Diaries to come out is Ancient Magus Bride. Now, it's kind of weird comparing a true fantasy series to a true not fantasy series, but it's got a lot of the same tropes that people really love about Apothecary Diaries. So Ancient Magus Bride is about a girl who has magic and can see magical creatures, and she gets abandoned by her family and gets sold into slavery. And this ancient mage, this like really cool, like deer skull headed dude who's like 6.5 feet tall, buys her out of pity. And he's like, okay, I'm going to take you on as my apprentice, and I'm going to teach you that you are not worthless and that you have a gift and not a curse. The weird bride part never really comes around. Like he says, like in chapter 1, that you're going to grow up to be my bride, and it's kind of squidgy, but it's weird because like it never really gets mentioned again. Like they form like a parent-child bond, and the whole bride thing doesn't really come up again after the first like book. It just does not become part of the plot. What's more important is the incredibly stoic character who is very, very broken, kind of rebuilding herself and to being a functioning human and to being a functioning magus. And her skill puts her into contact with magical beings that are higher up in the hierarchy than her. Like she meets like dragons and other cool mages and like Celtic, like figures from like Celtic mythology, like the Morrigan, and like Queen Titania of the fairy people. And the reason I picked it as a similar vibe to Apothecary Diaries is because the series is incredibly episodic. Okay. Like you'll have a couple of chapters dedicated to this one magical problem that she has to solve. And then she'll go on to another magical problem after learning a lesson. Same thing with Apothecary Diaries. You know, she solves one mystery and then moves on. Ancient Magus Brides does have a lot more character development of the main character. The Apothecary Diaries development all comes from us learning more about her past, whereas in Ancient Magus Bride, her past really doesn't matter to her anymore. She has tragic, you know, she has typical tragic backstory, but then what's interesting about her is seeing her grow as a person, and seeing how she changes and how she kind of rebuilds herself, which I said earlier. But yeah, so if you really liked Apothecary Diaries, you will love Ancient Magus Bride. It's also absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. I can't even stand how pretty it is. The anime will blow your friggin' socks off, but the art itself in the manga is just so pretty. It's just so nice. So yeah, after you finish reading the latest episode of the latest chapter of Apothecary Diaries, go pick up Ancient Magus Bride. Don't let the idea of the Magus Bride thing turn you off because, like I said, you're not even going to remember it like 6 chapters in. Trust me. Neither does the author. It's really funny. So a series that I am constantly asked about in the manga library, if we have, is Spy X Family. And again, it's another one that's kind of exploded onto the scene a few years ago and has stayed just as popular now as it was when it first debuted, because nothing was really quite like this before. It was actiony, it was funny, it was heartwarming, it was interesting, and it was a little shocking at some points when they suddenly go feral and they go to the huge boss fights. So the one that I'm going to pick for you is actually a brand new series, and it's called Kindergarten Wars. Kindergarten Wars, oh boy. So it's got the same weird surrealism vibe where Spy X Family, the family of spies gets to, there's a spy, an assassin, and a clairvoyant child, a mind reading child, and they all form this family, this like fake family, in order to complete this one mission. So that's very surreal and very silly. Kindergarten Wars is kind of similar. So there's this kindergarten, this daycare, this preschool, all rolled into one building, where the most elite children of this country go to school. We're talking like Yakuza bosses' kids, bankers' children, like presidents' daughters. And this is just where they all send their kids to go to school because it's the safest school in the whole country. Because everyone who works at this school is an assassin, a trained professional assassin who got caught by the government and was in prison. And they're told that if they work at this kindergarten for 2 years, then at the end they'll get a full pardon and then they can go on their own merry way. Everyone that works at this kindergarten's insane. They're absolutely certifiably insane. It's great. But they're so good at their jobs because they're master assassins that every single day, people come in to try to kidnap these very, very valuable children, and the staff literally fights them off while also doing puppet shows and, giving out snacks and taking and putting kids down for naps. It's so silly and so stupid. And your main character is kind of like an amalgamation of all 3 of the main characters of Spy X Family. She's an assassin who works there, and the only thing she wants in the world is to get a boyfriend. And whenever she goes to fend off an assassin, as soon as they take off their masks, if they're like a hot dude, she immediately switches gears from "I'm an assassin, baby" to "You're so cute, oh my god, tell me your entire life story," and she starts interrogating them, and just because she wants to see if they're compatible. But if you say the wrong thing, she will literally blow your head off with a Glock. It's great. I was reading this and I literally just guffawed at the end of the first chapter when she's interrogating this really hot looking assassin dude, and she's got him cornered and she's got a gun on him, and she's like, "Well, do you ever leave before the credits of a movie finish?" And he gets all quiet for a second. He's trying to figure out if he can woo her into submission and then go kidnap the kid he's here to kidnap. And he's like, "Yes, I always leave as soon as the credits start so that we can continue our wonderful date together." And he draws breath to say another word, and she just blows his head away because you can't ever leave before the end of the credits. Those people worked hard for those movies. It is absolutely absurd. It's so funny. It's got some fantastic character building moments. It's got that weird found family camaraderie that you have in Spy X Family. And it's got the fantastically wonderful fight scenes that you have in Spy X. while at the same time being a heartwarming series where these people just want to get their lives back after getting caught being assassins. Definitely try Kindergarten Wars. It's so good. I'm so glad we're reading it. I'm so glad I'm reading it. It's so good. So it's kind of funny. I picked these titles from this week by just writing down what I got asked for at MetroCon, which was the last convention that we did a couple of weeks ago. And another one that I kept getting asked for a lot was Blue Lock, which is the soccer manga that's super popular and has a lot of really great anime merch that's out now and a really great anime. So I was racking my brain trying to find a really great sports manga that wasn't your stereotypical story. So the one I picked to recommend to you guys this time is a bit of an older series that kind of fell under the radar. It didn't hit as hard as some of the things like Haikyuu. But the one I want to recommend is called Yowamushi Pedal. Pedal. So it's a biking manga. Okay. And it basically, so the main character is an absolute little fanboy for anime and manga. Okay. Absolute little fanboy. And he lives out in the boonies and he spends all of his time biking to different big cities to go to different anime stores to buy merch. And he's like 4 foot nothing, little tiny skinny dude with glasses, but he's got this amazing stamina for bike riding because he's been doing it his whole life to get to these big cities. So he's really, really good at like long distance bike riding. So he comes to the attention of the local, of the school's bicycling team, like cross country biking. And he's got a natural stamina, but not a lot of understanding of how competitive biking works. And his teammates are all crazy, which is typical sports manga. Same as Blue Lock. Everyone's got their quirky personalities. But what sets Yowamushi Pedal apart, and the reason I recommend it to this particular comparison, is because the main character, aside from being, randomly good at the sport, which is very, very typical of manga, he doesn't really want to be there. Like he gets into the sport and everything, but he doesn't lose his love of, his anime and his books. He just wants to be part of this team because he finally has friends. So it's definitely a good feel-good sports manga. It goes on for quite a long time. It's got some really interesting rivals. Oh, look at that. It's 5 o'clock. Forgive my clock in the background. There's a lot of background stuff this month, isn't there, y'all? Sorry, I'm not in my typical recording place. I'm actually just at home because pregnancy is hard and I can't always get into where I need to be. So yes, Yowamushi Pedal. You should definitely check it out. It's got everything you like about Blue Lock multiplied by about 5. So yeah, try Yowamushi Pedal out. So my last recommendation for you this month, I could not do this podcast without talking about Frieren, because Frieren should not has become as popular as it was. Okay, Frieren is a slow burn fantasy series where everything's just kind of melancholy, and of course I read it first because of course I did. I read everything before it becomes popular, and I never would have picked Frieren as exploding the way that it did. I understand why that it did, because it's a fantastic series, but it's not a super high action, with a million burning questions kind of series. It's not the kind of series that like grabs you with the plot and just like shakes you with it. It's more of like I said, it's a slow burn, and it's a slow burn fantasy series. So the series I'm going to recommend to you, that if you liked Frieren, it's actually a webcomic, and it's called Castle Swimmer. Okay. Again, slow burn fantasy is hard to really recommend stuff for. Most people, when I told them I was doing this, they're like, oh, so you're going to compare Frieren to like Witch Hat Atelier, right? It's like, yes, but that's too easy. I can't do that. That's simple. That's why I'm going to recommend Castle Swimmer to you. So it takes place completely underwater in the ocean in this fantasy world. And our main character is this creature called the Beacon. He's like a little gold mermaid dude. He's really cool. And he was created by the god of the ocean out of nothingness. And he was basically told when he was born, your job is to follow the light that comes out of your chest to a kingdom, and you're going to grant you're going to solve their prophecies for them, and then everybody will be happy. And that's your job for the rest of your life. That is why you exist. And that's all the instructions he ever gets. So he goes from castle to castle and kingdom to kingdom with absolutely no knowledge of how to help these people and no really magical powers or anything like that. And he just goes and he gets told the prophecy and he does the best that he can. But what happens is, because he has no instructions and all of these prophecies are super vague, he doesn't solve stuff the way people expect it to be solved. Like, he goes this one kingdom and like the prophecy is like the beacon will touch the great orb, and then blue flowers will sprout everywhere and the kingdom will be saved. So he's like, all right, cool, pretty straightforward. Goes to the orb, touches it, and pink flowers bloom everywhere. And they're like, oh no, we're all doomed, they're not blues, and they chase him out of the castle. So he's been doing this for like 20 years. And he finally gets fed up with everything. So, I'm going to do one more. I'm going to solve one more prophecy. And I'm going to go bury myself in a deep, dark hole because I can't freaking keep doing this. I just can't. I can't deal with the heartache anymore. I can't deal with the pain anymore. I can't deal with the uncertainty anymore. I'm just done. Okay? So he's got a lot of the same character tiredness that Freyren does. And that's really what made this series resonate with me, and Freyren. So I'm not going to give away the big plot of the whole Castle Swimmer story, but he gets caught up, the beacon gets caught up in a prophecy that will end up killing him if he finishes it. And he meets the prince of this kingdom, who is battling his own extremely tragic demons. And then they have to work through their demons together to try to figure out why these prophecies are happening and why these kingdoms are falling to ruin because of these prophecies and what's going on with the god of the sea. It's such a great series. It's going to really grip you and kind of drag you down underneath the waves into their world, and you're going to want to stay there. It's a really gripping, again, slow burn fantasy series with some good humor thrown in, wonderfully melancholic characters, and just the slow passing of time. So yeah, if you liked Freyren, absolutely go read Castle Swimmer. It's on Webtoon. It just came back from into its third season now, so it's got plenty of episodes for you to read for free that you can just go enjoy. So yeah, Castle Swimmer, go read it. All right, welcome to the Q&A portion of our podcast. This is where I go and answer questions from our Ask a Librarian channel on our Discord. If you are not a member of our Discord yet, jump on our website, www.carolinamangalibrary.com, and just click on social media, and our Discord link is right there. Or you can join our Patreon, and you can get exclusive access to several of the channels that you can't unless you're a patron. Ha 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 ha. So we have two questions this week. One is, I love this one, from Chai Dream Latte. What will your baby's first manga be? The number of times I've been asked this over the last 5 months has been really, really funny. And I haven't actually decided yet, but it'll probably be something like Cheese Sweet Home, something that I can read to them and they just look at the pretty pictures. But my husband is a children's librarian, so he's going to be like the authority on picking out what the baby gets to be read first and what they get to read, because there's not a lot of translated manga for little bitty kids, unfortunately, that never really made it over here. But there's millions and millions of children's books that are just it's basically like small comic books that we're going to try them out on. But like I said, their first manga, like, for the baby is probably going to be like Cheese Sweet Home that I read to them. But, you know, as they get older, I'm probably going to start them off with some classics. I'm going to start them off with, you know, like what I started with, some Sailor Moon and some, you know, maybe some Kingdom Hearts or something that they're playing on. Like if they're into Minecraft, I'll let them read the Minecraft books. So it'll just vary on the kiddos' tastes, because those are, you know, it's important to let them read what they want to read and not what I think is always the best. And our next question is, with the failure of Disney live-action remakes, oh, that's a whole question in itself, what are your opinions on the Japanese equivalent live-action versions of the mangas, and why do you think they do or don't do well in adapting their namesake properties? I think adaptation 90% of the time is a poor idea. Let me rephrase that. It's not a poor idea. If you are a fan of something, like a major, major, major fan of something, you're not gonna like most adaptations of it, okay? I actually did a whole panel on this at MetroCon. It's called, you know, why did the book hurt me, or why the adaptation was somehow worse. And most adaptations of things that you like, you're not going to like. Okay. If it's an adaptation of something you've never seen, then it's obviously very hit or miss. It's just like a regular movie to you. So they do well when you're adapting something popular because they will always be popular. Every time they make a new, Demon Slayer movie, it's going to sell out in theaters because everyone loves Demon Slayer. Even if they don't necessarily like the movie, they're still going to go see it. And then you get, weird little quirks like Howl's Moving Castle, which is based on a book series, if you didn't know that. It's based on a fantasy series by Diane Wynn. And I watched the movie first, and I love Howl's Moving Castle. It's my favorite Ghibli film. Not just because, it's a great story, but because Crispy like Chicken Freeman's in it, and he's, anything he's in, I'll watch at least. But then I went and read the books, and I was just angry. Like, the entire time I was reading the books, I was just mad. I was like, no, that's not my Howl. What are you doing? Howl wouldn't do that. Howl would never have a secret family back in England where he's actually from, and he's not a fake wizard. What? It's not that kind of thing. So the weird thing with adaptations is, again, if you like the original property or you like the movie, and then you go read the source material, you're probably not going to like you're not going to like the other version of it. There are some rare exceptions, not many, and not one that I can think of, to be honest. But the point is, they do or don't work because it depends on who's actually making it, too. I mean, so I saw the new Superman movie, okay, and I'm a Superman junkie. I've read so many Superman books, and my husband is an absolute Superman junkie. And we didn't really love the Henry Cavill films. We haven't loved the new ones that come out because it's so dark and gritty. And that's not Superman to me. Superman is the bright one. He's funny and heartwarming and adorable. And I haven't really seen that in movies since I saw, the Christopher Reeves movies back in the 80s and 90s. So then I saw this new one, and not to give any spoilers away, but it's not the greatest movie ever made. It's not the greatest Superman movie ever made. But I smiled the whole time I was watching it. So while it's not an adaptation, it is kind of their own adaptation of a beloved character. So my advice with adaptations, try it if you're interested, but keep an open mind. You're not going to like all of it. You're not going to like every decision they make. I have yet to find a Disney live action remake I actually enjoyed. I haven't even watched half of them, because I just get mad because I grew up with the original movies. Why on earth would I go watch Emma Watson not sing, So they'll work or they won't work, but you should try them, because the more money that the franchise gets, the more interest people think, and possibly we can get more of the original stuff. So try that. All right, we have some announcements coming up for you guys. First off, we were at MetroCon this last month, and we had the best time at MetroCon. If you've never been to MetroCon down in Tampa, it's the convention that I refer to as the old school feel with new school vibes. It is not a huge corporation convention. It's still run by a group of fans, but it's run so well and so professionally that it feels like one of the big cons where like you go and they're not going to have any problems with registration or any problems with security or anything like that. They're just going to be good, well-run convention, okay? And it was huge, okay? It's just an absolutely gigantic convention. I love it so much. It's in a beautiful convention center, actually overlooks Tampa Bay. So it's really nice to be able to walk through the hallways, and just your entire wall to your right is just windows looking out over Tampa Bay, so you can see the boats go by and the pirate ships and the jet skis and all that stuff. It's really cool. And of course, the manga library did just fantastically. We actually welcomed 5,500 people into the library in 3 days. That's actually our second most attended convention in 12 years of running this at big events, at any events. 5,500 people in 3 days is the second highest. The only one ever to beat that is 5,800. And that was a 4-day convention, also in Florida. So yeah, if you are interested in looking for a new convention to go to, definitely try out MetroCon in Tampa. You will not regret it. It's one of the best cons I've been to. It really is. Our next experience, we're actually out for August and September. We don't have anything booked up right now. We will be at Dragon Con doing some stuff, but nothing official. But our next big event is going to be at SubasaCon. That'll be in West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia. And this is my favorite convention of the year. And I'm so sad I'm not going to be there this year. It's driving me crazy to think that I will not be spending my birthday at SubasaCon. I have spent 12 years of birthdays. I've spent 10 or 11 years of birthdays at SubasaCon. And the SubasaCon is what I can refer to as the little convention that could. It's not a big show. It's not a big show, but it's a very small, very intimate convention that you will always have something to do at. And the reason I love it so much is because the people running it actually care about the anime and the manga and the people. When I don't know if a lot of you who are listening now remember, but about 5 or 6 years ago, we were having a lot of trailer issues where the axle on our trailer was literally snapping in half, and we were constantly like blowing tires and just having a really terrible time. And it finally failed completely, and we had to buy a new one. So we were trying to raise money for it. And the staff of SubasaCon went to opening ceremonies and passed a dang hat around to everybody that attended opening ceremonies, asking for donations to help us. And they raised just a massive amount of money for just a room full of people. And they came and they gave it to me, and I cried. I cried like a 5-year-old because I was so moved that the convention staff could care so much about, our organization and what we do. And it's part of the reason I do what I do is from the help of people who support our mission, that literacy is something that is to be celebrated and not to be shut down, and that reading is reading. And we would not be anywhere without the love of the people who support us. And SubasaCon is at the top of that list for that. So it's the weekend of October the 10th. It's my birthday. Yay. Definitely, if you have some time, take a weekend, come up to Charleston, West Virginia. Come see the trees changing color. It's in the middle of the mountains. And, go to the con one day and then take a 10-minute drive up the road and go to the Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant. You can enjoy that cryptid life. So yeah, definitely we'll see you guys at SubasaCon in October. Thank you for joining us in this month's episode of Shelf Check, brought to you by the Carolina Manga Library. This episode was written and recorded by the Carolina Manga Library and edited by NoodleBoyMedia. You can find information about NoodleBoyMedia on all social networking sites. We return next month with Classic Series, Where Do I Start? A primer on reading those old classics that you haven't even heard of anymore, but you think you should. Remember, if you're interested in supporting the library, consider becoming a patron. Patrons get access to the podcast a day early, as well as behind the scenes like bloopers and transcripts. We are also on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Discord, YouTube, and Facebook. You can find links to all of this on our website, www.carolinamangalibrary.com. So until next month, we'll see you in the stacks.